Today we're going to talk about three 148 scale models I've got here. Just finished the SR71, which is the model on the right, and the U2 TR1, which is the one in the front with a very wide wingspan, and then the back is a B58 Hustler that I've completed and recently. But just to talk about these a little bit, the first one here is a B58 Hustler, was a strategic bomber. The one I've got right here is 148 scale. It's made by Monogram. It's a very old kit, very lot of bad gaps and joints, so it takes a lot of work. And I actually spent almost 4 years building this because I first built it, then I went and painted it, or not painted it, but I tried to use a technique of a rub-on type metallic finish that, for whatever reason, came out not so good. But then I went to decal it, and the decals went on it and just destroyed it. And so I basically stripped it and rebuilt the model. It's a very interesting plane, Mach 2 bomber that served from the late 50s up into the late 60s. It didn't have a long service life. They made a little over 100 of them. They were very difficult to handle, I guess. I don't know if that's really what to say. They just, delta wing bomber, the speed, the high landing gear, they were difficult to fly, so they retired them. And again, it was supposed to be a high altitude, high speed bomber, and then the change in the Soviet missiles that caused that to be changed, they turned them into a low penetration bomber. But interesting plane, didn't have the range like the B-52, so it got retired a little bit earlier than probably it should have been in its lifetime. But I've always liked these planes. It's just a nice design. It looks fast just sitting on the ground. So anyway, it was ahead of its time. It was back in the same time when we were building the SR71, which is its next plane, and the A-12, which was its predecessor, which was a single-seat plane. But this right here is a two-seat plane. And I've spent some time, you can't see it. At least you can't see it in what I've done here. The cockpits are detailed. But just, you can kind of see in there, I went in there and painted out the panels and stuff. But the SR71 is the plane that holds the speed record for the fastest air-breathing engine plane at Mach 3 plus. And to this day, it's still the fastest plane. And it's kind of interesting to look at the scale here, because these are 148 scale, but the SR71, which is a reconnaissance plane designed to take pictures at high altitude and high speed, is almost longer. It's actually longer than the B-58 Hustler, which was a strategic bomber. So in scale, they're very similar in size, with the SR71 being just a bit bigger than the B-58. And then the last plane here is the TR1. And the TR1 was a offshoot, or basically the U2 of Francis Gary Powers' train, where it was shot down over Russia, making the first trans-Russia photographic mission. And but they've still kept this plane around. It's in its 60s now for this design, and it was built by Lockheed. So Lockheed built the U2 from the Skunk Works, and they built the SR71, and the B-58 was built by Convair, which eventually became General Dynamics. And just neat planes. Some of my favorite planes. I've always liked the Skunk Works planes. And this actual kit here on the U2 is very easy to put together, and it doesn't have all the problems and issues that the other two planes did. So it actually went together quite well, which I was surprised, because it was done in the same era. All these molds for these planes are done back in the 70s or 80s or earlier. This SR71 on 148 scale, the only people that made it was Monogram Breville, and now it's owned by Italiari. But this plane is this plane has lots of seams that are way out of space. It doesn't fit together well. It takes a lot of work to get the plane to look good. But I'm pretty much happy with what I've done with it. Try to get around here so we can get a better look at the tail number. And this is the low visibility scheme here. So has no national insignia or anything like that. The 1/72 scale ones I photographed a week or two ago, they had the earlier markings that were in Okinawa. This one right here would be a more modern version of the SR-71 before they retired it in the late 90s. For the second time, it was retired once, and then they brought a couple of them back, and then they retired them in the late 90s. Anyway, I'm getting ready to go back to working on the layout, so all my friends that are wondering where Cam's layout's progress is going, it's been not going too far. It's been in planes mostly. Anyway, hope everybody has a great weekend. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I'm waiting to see Tom Brady, see if he can win another Super Bowl. It'd be very interesting to see that. Although I like the Chiefs too. I think they're a great team, but just for old time's sake, I'd like to see Brady win.